All right, how are you?
Yeah. Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on PharcydeTv. My co-host Jeremy Scipio had to hit a stage tonight and do what he does with that comedy thing. But we have Christopher Dowd from the group Fishbone.
What's happening?
Cool. So real quick, man, Fishbone was like a major influence during my junior high school years. You know what I'm saying? It was it was crazy because I grew up in the South Bay. So like near Lomita, Harbor City. The Descendants, they came up out of here. So we got a little bit of history, going on.
Got you.
But without me really knowing it, it was kind of like hip hop was kind of new, like when I was in junior high school, like around the early 80s and whatnot. And we had like heavy metalers that went to our junior high school. We had punks that went to my junior high school, and like breakdancing and all that was kind of like the other culture before hip hop really just hipped and hopped. Like it was like kind of like electro hop and like kind of that culture.
Sure.
But Fishbone kind of gave like an edge for the brothers as far as like the punks and whatnot, kind of went in. And it was crazy because last week's episode, my co-host interviewed me, and I was telling him that punks turned me on to more reggae than anybody else, which was kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like they had done the research, like, it was, and then it was kind of like, some punks were cool, some punks were, they were way out or whatever, but
that comes from England too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, really, as all, as far as the art form, a lot of, the punk stuff started here. You can go far back as Iggy Pop and the Stooges. But and English people might argue, mate, we had, the Who before you lot and all that kind of thing. But it's like, we had, it happened here first. I mean, I would dare to say that, like, Little Richard was like the first punk shit, if you think about it. Because he spawned David Bowie and everybody, you know what I mean?
I never put
So
I never put that together. Yeah, he was as liberal in his punk. I guess he was liberal in his punk rock as he could claim it. Yeah, he definitely could claim it.
Well, I feel like we grew up at a really amazing time in an amazing city. Despite the, like I say, there's above Wilshire and below Wilshire. But yeah, I think, we became a lot of people's punk band, especially from the hood, because it was like there was nothing like us. I mean, the closest thing would be Funkadelic or something like that, but then not even that, because again, like the reggae influence.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop into the interview, but I'm gonna tell you one of my classic. So I got two classic Fishbone stories. Okay. One, Fenders Ballroom, freaking the smallest, sweatiest bar, most punk rockiest, and me watching Angelo climb up on that beam.
Yeah.
And that was like, that was so
wild. We were wild. I mean, I used to backflip into the audience, used to climb up on the rafters. We used to do flips on stage because we saw HR do that shit.
Oh, damn. I didn't even put that together. I did not even put that together. And then you would
and then all those punk bills,
Yep. I saw Great Britain Hardcore at Fenders, the Dickies a million times, the Vandals.
Wow. You were South Bay.
Oh, it was right 10 minutes across the bridge. I live, Harbor. I come from Harbor City, so it's right across the bridge. So
right.
Yeah, so that was our thing. And then my second Fishbone story was my parents were going out of town on a cruise, and I was about maybe the 10th grade in high school.
Right.
And my buddies wanted to go and see Fishbone at the Olympic. And I was like, man, I know. Old school. It was the Fishbone, it was the Skeletons. It was a sky evening. So
Wow.
I'm 10th grade in high school. And so my mom was like, you can go out and you can go to this thing, but you got to be home at midnight. And so they're leaving for a cruise the next day. So I get there, and you guys were nowhere near the stage at midnight.
Oh, wow. It was one of those.
Y'all wouldn't even know where. It was probably about 3 or 4 bands. You know what I'm saying? And so I was talking to my homeboy, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, nah, man, we in here, man. You know what I'm saying? We done waited in trouble, huh? Yeah, we waited in line. But the trip was, when I got home, I ended up getting home around 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and my parents were leaving to go to San Pedro to catch their cruise. And I basically left it unscathed, man. I didn't even get hollered at. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Which, you know, it's probably the universe. They was like, man, we about to go on this little cruise. You know what I'm saying? We're going to
tear your ass up when we get back.
Yeah. But I avoided you the pass, huh? Yeah, it was the power of the bone, man. Y'all.
Wow.
So
glad I can help.
Oh man, definitely did. Where were you the first time you heard hip hop, and what was the song?
Wow. I would say, like, how would I say? I would put it even more so like this. The first time I internalized Soul Sonic Force, man. Straight up. Uncle Jam's, Army, Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
Around the corner from my house, on Crenshaw, Consolidated Plaza, 12th grade.
Wow.
Yep. Getting ready to graduate from high school. And the amazing thing about it was, it wasn't just that hip hop thing. It was like what was happening in LA. Period.
I'm glad you touching that.
It was all popping off. It wasn't just the hip hop thing. It was like the rock thing was evolving.
So real quick, I'm a man. I gotta jump around my questions a little bit, but so like, so in my opinion, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people. It seems like this generation, would you say that this generation is the only generation that doesn't make music about the political climate? Or do you just feel that maybe people do make music about the political climate, but the powers that be just kind of, they won't let these guys, you know what I'm saying? They won't let them because it seems like no one is saying nothing about nothing. And then when I listen to like Party at Ground Zero, and I'm like, and I didn't, you know, it's like, and that was one of the allures of Fishbone to me. It was like, okay, they were like they were a fun type of group, but then to kind of counterbalance the frat boy rock type of thing.
Ah, you going there?
No, because it was. It was serious
all the way.
No, you guys were serious, and I kind of felt like I watched a Jimi Hendrix documentary one time, and they were saying how kind of like Jimmy was torn, and it was like he had, you know, he was just a popular cat. He was very talented, and then, you know, he was jamming with the white folks, but then he was jamming with the brothers. And then it was like he was kind of getting torn, and they were saying like, well, Jimmy, you know, you need to help with the cause because the cause is going on. And
cause needs you. Well, I mean, think about it like this. I would imagine, and just, look, man, I'll just say I've been blessed to have like grown up and lived in a lot of different places. Mm-hmm. So I lived in Washington State as a young teenager, like right after the band met. I ended up living, because it was getting hot. It was getting hot on the west side, and my mom did not want me On the west side anymore. So she's like, you gotta go live with your dad because it was that time.
Yeah.
It was popping off. So yeah, my cat might come in here.
Oh, that's all good.
Yeah, here she comes. So it was all popping off then. So I got sent away. So I got lucky enough to live in Washington State. And then because of that, had all these other affiliations. Like that's kind of like where even the Seattle affiliation came with me. I lived up there, and some of the guys I went to a guy in particular I went to high school with passed away, ended up living next door to Andy Wood in Seattle. So it's just like I've been blessed to be in all these circles. And to speak more to your point, so Los Angeles, man, was just a lot of music going on. You know what I mean? And I've been lucky to have this background to like live in these sort of different worlds. And that's kind of what music brings you. So I'd imagine Jimmy being a person that lived in Washington State, I would almost say grew up probably in a background that was kind of apolitical. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we grew up in Los Angeles and you could walk around the corner in your block and get to the end of the block and have the police draw down on you. And that was a real thing. And my mom kind of got tired of watching that happen and freaked out, quite honest.
You know,
so by virtue of those experiences alone, it makes you aware as a human being, right?
Yeah, you know,
and then you become a musician. You're like, I have this voice where I can say something. And even if it doesn't affect change, there's some brother or some person out there that's lived this lived experience that that song, I wrote it to speak to that person. So maybe in that individual turmoil, you feel like, hey, I'm not alone.
So did the label ever say like, you know, that's a little too,
you know, the thing about us, we were just like, they look, we were lucky enough to be talented enough to make records that people cared about and navigated that system politically where a lot of bands got dropped and stuff. That was like, I don't even know what you call it. Just understanding of politics, but being young and idealistic enough to be like, yo, we ain't that. So if you thought we were.
But you know, the other blessing, you guys were kind of I'm not going to say you were the first, but in a way you were the first of doing like what you did. You know what I'm saying? Because I would say Fishbone was like, to me, it was like punk, ska, reggae, funk, you know, the whole gamut. And so, you know, dealing with a label, they probably jerked you guys' chain a little bit, but at the same time, they gave you more levity than they would give somebody else because you were so new, like at what you were doing. You know what I'm saying? From the standpoint of record company executives dealing with a band like you guys.
Well, I would say like this. We did smart things, man. We were lucky enough to have an A&R person at the time that understood how to navigate the situation. And we were so tight as a band by the time we got to recording that it didn't take us long to make records. And we were all on the same page artistically. So it's just like, it wasn't costing us a lot of money to make records. We toured our asses off and we were self-sufficient in that regard. So they weren't really taking a chance, and therefore I think it was like we were going to say what we were going to say anyway. So it was like, how are we going to navigate this system and make it work for us? I mean, there were things about it that I ain't gonna like, look, I'm not gonna pull no punches. There was some shit, you know, where I'd be like, yo, y'all can eat a dick, and we, look, you know where we came from. I have to, it's just that, look, I don't know what you think is gonna happen, but it's not gonna happen. And luckily, I think in a lot of ways, it was a respect of maybe our artistry and knowing we would eventually get there too. Because at the time, look, you have to look at Flea and Anthony and go, it's just a matter of time before they blow up.
Yeah.
you know, because of what they're doing was so unique, and the time, there was nothing like that. And to be quite honest, the rock shit was boring. It had gotten, you know, I mean, don't you think so? It all the edge had left, and it was kind of corny, and it was like, you know, big synth, you know, arena rocket sounding, which is like cool in a campy kind of way, but in a serious, like, that ain't Hendrix, or, you know what I mean? That ain't,
yeah, but I was fascinated all the same. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, with all of it, you know what I'm saying? With because to me, so like the Chili Peppers, let's just say, and this is, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, and I'm not gonna whatever. But like, let's say funky style, you know, or freaky style, or funky style. Yeah, freaky style. Okay. So when I heard that, if I would have tried to judge that like Anthony Kiedis was rapping, then I probably, I would have been like, ah, man, this is garbage, or just whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you think about MCs at that time, Rakim.
Yeah, you like,
we could just go.
But for them, and I think that was the one that George Clinton maybe had produced, but I didn't know George Clinton had produced it at the time.
Yeah, but
it was funky, you know what I'm saying? And so to me, that was the thing, like with the Chili Peppers, like that was the thing that kind of you know, that was the allure to me. It was like, you know, funkadelic and all that stuff. And George, that was like the old, that was like the senior class of funk. And then you have a freshman class that's kind of inching its way into the scene. And it was kind of interesting. But when I saw you guys, it was kind of like, honestly, when I look back at it, and specifically the Fender show, I was like, these dudes was on some mandrel, ska, punk, just this whole good type of music thing, but you guys were great musicians too. Like, so it wasn't like someone could have attempted what you guys attempted. And if they weren't talented musicians, if they didn't have the stage presence, the charisma, like I remember,
I appreciate it.
You would spin your DX7 Yamaha. Yeah. You destroyed a couple of them. I saw it.
Oh my God.
I can claim that. I saw that. You know, so that kind of added to it. But tell me this: during that time with the rock, the funk, the punk, the reggae music and all that, did you ever think hip hop was going to be as large as it is?
It's funny. I was having this conversation like an hour ago from somebody. Well, our new guitar player in the band is from DC, and, you know, he grew up in that scene with Bad Brains and Chuck Brown, and you know what I'm saying? So there was a time when we got signed where there was like there was a fork in the road. Everybody, all the live musicians were saying like, all these drum machines ain't gonna do blah, 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 you know what I mean? And then the DJs and the MCs was like, y'all, you know, like they were making their like, yeah, whatever, that's old and blah, blah, we don't even need instruments. We MCs, you know what I mean? So, and then the go-go stuff, which everybody thought was gonna blow up because it was like the best of both worlds. It was live music, it was super funky. Remember, Trouble Funk started bubbling. They were coming to LA and they were playing big theaters and shit and selling it out. So it was like, it was all bubbling. I will tell you, I knew it was happening because we were playing with everybody. Mm-hmm. We were opening up for Houdini. You know, like the first shows Leor Cohen ever did, we were on. Like, that's facts. The first shows he ever did in Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, we got into a fight with Leor Cohen because he was like, I'm taking your fucking amps. You know how Leor talks and shit, right?
Yeah.
Your fucking amps. You fucked up the fucking ceiling, man. And we were like, wait a minute. Killer's brother, and Killer, like, people don't know, we came, like, Killer lived on Blackwell. So it was like all these thugs in the audience, like, you gonna do what? Anyway, It got chilled out, but he was very hot on Houdini. He promoted and did those first shows. Run DMC, Houdini, like all the early Russell Simmons stuff. LL, like that was all Lior.
The Palladium, or like he was
yeah. No, not by the time it got to the Palladium. It was like, no, I'm talking about when it was like
Kit Kat Club.
What's this place? It was called, I'm gonna tell you what's jacked up. It was called the Stardust Ballroom.
I remember.
Remember the Stardust?
Yeah.
So now it's a Home Depot, which is just like every time I drive by it, it's just like a little part of my heart just breaks because
you're talking about off of Sunset, right?
Yeah, because the first time Run DMC played in LA, it was us, the Chili Peppers, and Run DMC.
Dang.
And then when Houdini played, it was us, Ice-T, and Houdini.
See,
it's so even pre-6. There was no 6 in the morning. There was none of that was going on. That was a thought.
You know, it's so funny because I was thinking, I don't know why I thought about Ice-T when I was thinking about you guys today, and I was kind of thinking about the interview, but Ice-T, he kind of had it cracking at I want to say it was the Funk Jungle. I mean, he had United Nations cracking, but like the Funk Jungle was over like by Hollywood Live. Like it was like the upstairs part of Hollywood Live and whatnot. But like,
you know, on Sunset.
Yep.
Oh, but that's been like you know, I got into a fight with Rick James one night at a bar. It's like
a hell of a drug, man.
Oh yeah, you know. Yep. So a lot of people have spots in there.
Yeah, no.
Tequila Sunset one week. It's like, well, you know, that was that time.
But people, you know, I kind of feel bad that the generation of now, like, okay, they see Ice-T as this dude who's, you know, he's an actor. They know he's kind of a player. They know he got some stuff. But like, man, Ice-T was like really on some foundational.
He birthed LA hip hop.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it's like he birthed it. NWA solidified.
Yeah.
That part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the side that really started to, I grew up around Thug, blah, blah, blah. You know, the part when I started becoming more intrigued with hip hop was like De La Soul.
Man.
Jungle Brothers.
Man.
I was a Native Tongue guy, like all day.
That's so crazy. That is so crazy. You never would have thought. Like
man, you can't. How could you can't not hear 3 Feet High and Rising and just not be like, wow. Because it's like, you know, in a lot of ways, to me, that record's like it's like a living Basquiat painting.
It takes you on a journey, and that,
you know what I'm saying?
Like,
but it's like it's a piece of everything. It's like it's like the grandest collage art masterpiece sonically of all, and hip hop definitely. Think about it. It birthed the hip hop concept album. That was only a thing that rock dudes did. You know what I mean? If you look at that record or their records in general, they birthed that whole conceptual idea that hip hop could be more than this. It could be art.
And then the journey of skits and whatnot that kind of lead.
Yeah, all of that happened.
Huh. That's crazy. So tell me this. What was your first musical instrument?
Piano. Well, actually, you know what? Guitar. Really. I still play guitar exactly the same way I played it, like when I picked it up when I was 8, too. It's funny.
Yeah, real quick, man. I want to give a shout out to the chat room. We got Alexander. He been going hard on us, man. He a good cat though. he been going. Alexander been going hard. I want to give a shout out to Ken and what's up, Worm. So yeah, I shout out the chat, man. It ain't a big chat, but you know what I'm saying. They rocking with us, so I give them their love. But so what was the soundtrack to your junior high school experience? What music was going on at that time?
Uncle Jam's Army. You know, like straight up. That is the summer that somehow, don't ask me how 14-year-old Chris Dowd convinced his mama to let him go to the funk festival by himself. I was like, yo, either you let me go or I'm going to escape and make it happen. But I'm going to see Bootsy and Rick James play. You can't stop it.
That sounds like something that was at the Coliseum or the
that was that funk
sports arena. One of the two.
The Coliseum.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like
I saw him 3 times at that point. So by the time I got into high school, we had met Tracy Clinton just hanging out in our hood. And they were playing those Beverly theater shows like a week. The first time Dennis Chambers played with him. And that's the first time I really like met George and Bernie Morrell. Yeah, like, I can't even. We couldn't even form sentences. I just funk music. So George Clinton.
They never gave Bernie his props, man. I really, that kind of hurt. From a standpoint of like Dr. Dre. Like, okay, so they say Dr. Dre invented the G sound. No, Bernie were like they like it wouldn't have.
I mean, but it's a combo platter too, because it's a combo platter, and if you know the funk stuff, it's Bernie and Junie Morrison.
Ooh.
And you can't even skip them, and you got to throw Gary Scheider in there, man. You got to.
Yeah.
Because if you think about Needy, right? Listen, next time you listen to Needy, Michael Hampton plays that crazy guitar solo, right? And then at the very end of it, Gary Scheider comes in and just plays like the simplest doom, 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 doom. And it was just like, yeah, you just said all that, but check this out. I'm gonna just play these 4 notes. It's just gonna be the illest 4 notes. And that in and of itself birthed hip hop right there in those sonic little moments, man. You know?
So what did Beat Street mean to you? So you're well versed in like all this musical culture and all these things going on. So when you saw Beat Street, what was your?
Is Angelo in Beat Street?
No, he was in Breaking.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's all. But see, that's all. Like, how do I put this? Like, Angelo was always like at that time. If you were on Hollywood Boulevard and Vine and all that pop locking that went on those corners, and all the people I grew up with that did that, it represented that whole scene. But that's that Uncle Jam's army. Always, to me, all roads, as far as hip hop to me in LA, all roads point to Uncle Jam's army. Like, period. End of story.
Wow.
It just does.
That's the amen.
Think about it. Who came out of that whole crowd of people? Like, everybody. Even if you don't even know it, it's like every producer that you think that was ill in the beginning of the LA hip hop stuff, they were all at them
Dr.
parties.
Dre.
Yeah.
Just all them cats. Yeah, no.
Cat. I mean, you just go.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact. So what were your strongest musical influences while you were in high school?
It was like it was like the junior high school thing started, and they were like, you know, because we got bused to the Valley. I went to Hell Junior High in Woodland Hills, and that's where we all met. And so it was like, eventually, after going to school for 3 years with these kids, they realized the black kids aren't going to kill us. So whatever their parents were telling them at the time.
The homies might kill him. The homies might kill him.
Homies might get us, but
these aren't going to kill us.
You know, I tell you, it's cool. So, you know what I mean? So by the time we were like in 9th grade, it was like they were giving us physical graffiti, and we was making them listen to One Nation Under a Groove. And it was like this whole thing happening. So really, I feel like our sound got birthed in that whole thing. Because we were listening to like, and like you think of Hendrix, it was like Band of Gypsies with My Name is Bootsy. But then the new wave punk rock stuff was starting to bubble. And because, I mean, to be frank, Kendall and I were like hood nerds. You know what I mean? We were hood nerds. So we would be like, yeah, we were listening to the Parliament stuff, and we were listening to Zeppelin and Hendrix and discovering all that stuff. But this Devo album came out, and B-52s came out with Rock Lobster.
Man.
And you know this, they were bumping Rock Lobster on 1580 K-Day. That's how dope that song was. Yeah, you think about it. The only other white people that ever got on K-Day was like David Bowie or Bobby Caldwell. You feel me? But then they were playing that, and Whip It, they actually played on K-Day because it was such a big song. So we started listening to Devo, and as usual, once you get in the crates, what other records did they make?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they made 4 albums before we even got to Whip It, and all that stuff started happening.
Man,
so it was just, yeah, man.
So in high school, what did you think your path was going to be when you graduated?
We had started really playing together musically like every day after high school, because the goal was by the time we graduate from high school, we're going to already be playing clubs in LA. That was the whole thing. And there was a kid that we went to high school with, and he had a new wave band. So we would book, he would book shows. So like he got us a gig at Madam Wong's, and we like played Madam Wong's in high school. You know what I mean? So like that was the goal. So it's just like, hey, we were just playing. Like, and then we got to the point where we'd be in that room like skipping school. My mom would be calling Norwood's mom and like, these kids, you better make sure your sons don't let my son flunk out of school. And, you know, all that, you know.
Yeah.
And moms being concerned because single black women raising their sons in LA.
And it was rough. I was gonna say earlier when you were talking about how wild it was, I can remember going to the Del Amo Mall, and I lived like 10 minutes from the Del Amo Mall, like straight up Sepulveda. And I remember coming back and I got a ticket. I had 4 homies with me. I was in a Honda Accord.
There you go.
It was a 1989 Honda Accord. It was 1989. I had 4 homies with me. We were coming from the mall. And so I see a sheriff car next to me. So he slows down, so I slow down. So he slows down, so I slow down. So basically, we both stopped, but the light had turned red. And so he hit me up and told me to, pull over. So he's like, well, you know why I'm pulling you over? And I was like, no. He said, you were driving too slow. So I was like, whatever. So they pulled all of us out the car, kicked me in my ankles, you know what I'm saying? Spread me out and everything. And he really said, where do you work? And I told him I worked for my father, and he was an Allstate insurance agent. So I pulled out a business card thinking like, okay, this is going to be whatever. Just to fuck with me, he really called that number. And it was about like,
of course.
It was like 8:30 at night. You know what I'm saying? But he really called that number like he was going to see if I worked there or whatever. But I say that to say that was the tone of LA back in the late 80s, coming into 90s. Like
driving while black.
But I'll tell you this. After the riot, after the Rodney King stuff, we didn't get pulled over just because, like that kind of, like all that kind of thing. And I think part of it was because, when the riot jumped off, I remember homies, like they was back in tow trucks in the thrift stores and, securing arms and whatnot. So it wasn't, so it was a crazy time, but to see LA in flames like that, they had to kind of chill out on just like.
Yeah, people, in a lot of ways, people like because you know what? They were like, we can pop all this if we want to, but if they decide, if these black folks have had enough, they're going to get with us. And it's going to be a problem. And they saw what could happen.
Yeah.
People, that's what people did then.
Man.
When they felt violated, people, this country, certain people in this country, folks would stand up and speak on it.
And it's funny, I had posted on Instagram Public Enemy performing Fight the Power back in the late 80s, like the late 80s. And my comment underneath that was, they ain't gonna never let this happen again.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna never.
I think, you know what, man, I'm just a firm believer in this, the greater spiritual good will weigh out. But if it's anything that this time has taught me, it's just like, you have to be vigilant about what you stand for and what you want your freedom to look like.
Hey man, I was friends with you on well, I still am, but I really don't go on, like I deal with social media kind of for this, and I'm not the greatest at it.
Feel you.
That's why my followership is, it is what it is. Social media is kind of like fantasy world to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I look at it like, it's cool if you want to. This is the experiment you can take on yourself to see where your mind is. Go to your Instagram and look at everything that pops up. You know what I'm saying? And that's what your folks. So for me, dogs, food, you know what I'm saying? And my homeboy was like, man, you using it wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
He's like, you're using it wrong. But I say that to say, I do remember when I was on Facebook a lot, like, oh man, you hated the last presidency, boy. Ooh, were you outspoken on that?
Oh man, I you think that's something, but you hear these songs come out that I wrote. Like, I don't know, like, look, I'm gonna tell you something, man. And this is, and you can call this conspiracy theory or theoretical, but I think when people stopped paying for music,
mm-hmm.
when you stop valuing art and artistic expression,
mm-hmm.
To me, the highest, thing you can do is give your earnest feelings
mm-hmm.
and put that into something musical. And when you stop valuing that, when people can get anything they want to at any time instantly, you stop valuing it. But you don't realize that it's one of these invaluable resources. So I think at a certain point when everybody started getting music free, they stopped looking at liner notes. They stopped understanding what the artist was trying to say to them, and no longer value it, right?
Dude.
So then that dumbs down a lot of ways the entire intelligentsia stuff. I just noticed like weird things, like why did they stop putting the dates on when films were made? Like, because if people don't understand the chronological relevance of it, mm-hmm. and where we are as a society at any point, then you stop understanding the mechanisms of how things work. And if you don't understand the mechanisms of how things work, you can't speak on them,
mm-hmm.
or you don't feel comfortable speaking on them. Because you don't want to be called ignorant, or you don't want to be called racist, or you don't want to be. But if we continue, we don't. If our echo chamber is just us hearing what we want to hear about ourselves and our own beliefs, like, yeah, then that's all you're gonna get. But then you start hiding your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we stop engaging as human beings with each other. And that's how you dumb a society down. And when you dumb a society down like that, they don't have any expectation of them for themselves as human beings. You have no expectation for yourself, then you lost.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I'm not saying like everybody's got to be like, I'm going to be an airplane pilot or whatever, whatever. But when you stop having like an expectation or expect to be treated a certain way.
No, I
I ain't trying to preach right now, but that's how I feel, man.
No, I get it, because I can think back and I was like, man, I wanted to look at liner notes because I wanted to see who wrote songs. You know what I'm saying? I want to see who played.
That's how I started. That's what made me become a musician. It's like that dude, Maurice White. Well, can this world be a masquerade? You know, and I was like, yeah, man. I was like 7 and shit. Though. I'm here. I was like, whatever masquerade is, it's got to be deep. So. But these are those are the little pathways that evolve us into the thinking and interacting human beings that we are. And social media is a construct you can hide behind.
No, it's a fantasy.
Say some foul shit to somebody, and you don't have to have any repercussions for it. And now it's got to the point where they just lie and say flagrant bullshit. All of it.
Yeah.
You know.
So tell me this. So, like I mentioned earlier, I saw you spin many a Yamaha DX7 around on stage. What made you choose that keyboard?
It was like, keyboards are like like music trends. You know what I mean? It was what was hot at the time. You know what I mean? Like that was a keyboard to have. So I wanted to have the state-of-the-art keyboard.
Okay.
And it's as simple as that.
Dang.
I was never I think I'm like a fan of sounds.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that was like the sound that I wanted at the time.
Mm-hmm. A lot of ska bands played, English ska bands, they played with the DX7. Yeah.
It was such a versatile keyboard at the time. Either, if you think about it, if you were a keyboard player at that time, you'd have to have like 3 keyboards to do different things. This Rhodes sound, or that clap sound, or this synthesizer. But that keyboard was like, it had everything on it. It had a cool organ sound. It had some great synth sounds. It's weird when I listen to it now. Because again, sounds change.
You've evolved.
Yeah. I think my thing, and I think, especially our thing has been, is like this attempt to always make something timeless. Like you can still listen to Nat Cole and listen to those records, and they're amazing, and they're from like the 30s, but you're still like, this is amazing. And they did that with one mic in the room, and they had a dude singing on one mic, and you're like, yeah, man, one take. It wasn't no overdubs. We weren't taking the keyboard, we weren't taking the computer and nudging shit. There was no auto tune.
Analog.
You had to handle it. Can you sing or not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I got a quick verses for you. Monkey boots or Doc Martens?
Wow. That is just, wow, man.
I've scarred up many a floor with monkey boots, man.
Oh man, my mom cussed me out many a day. Like, you don't take them boots off, fucking up my floors. I'm gonna have to go monkey boots, man. Just because they're the OG. That's like the pre-Doc Marten. You know what I mean?
And the crazy thing about it,
that's like Q-Tip or J. Cole. It's like, J. Cole is dope, but Q-Tip is just like dark. That's like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And you
you know what I mean?
had to go to Nana's, man. It wasn't like you could just go anywhere. I mean,
wow, you had to pull Nana's out. I was just thinking, I wish there was a Nana's right now, boy.
Hey, man, that's where you had to go in order to, have the fashion flips of Hollywood. You know what I'm saying?
Hollywood.
It's like, and it's crazy because it's kind of like, I think stuff like, would John Lennon be cool with Beatles music being in commercials and stuff like that? And then like I noticed, like going to London and spending quite a bit of time there, there's all these huge Doc Marten billboards, and I'm just like, man, were Docs really meant to just be out there? Like, I mean, because they were kind of in LA, it they were something, you know what I'm saying? They wasn't like, they had a little more prestige at the time. They had a little more prestige than a Jordan.
Yes. With certain crews, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jordan thing came way late. Yeah, Doc Martens are the original Air Jordans.
Yeah.
Think about it. You know what I mean?
For real.
That was like that was like the height of like, you know, punk chic right there.
So I'm gonna go into this part of the podcast where it was probably the end of last year. Yeah, it's probably around the end of last year. I had a friend and he got his social media jacked. And it was kind of like they came at him with some game. It just seemed like it was just too good. They showed him some stuff and he went online and logged in with a password and saw money in an account and all this kind of stuff.
I've heard about those.
So I got a part of the podcast where I refer to the Monkey Hustle Chronicles. Now we talk about Monkey Boots. We want the Monkey Hustle Chronicles. So for you, what was the craziest hustle you saw ran on somebody, or what's the craziest hustle that's ever been ran on you?
Oh man. Wow.
Real quick.
I got my head bumped buying a gold chain on Crenshaw. I got that shit turned green. Oh my God. That was buying
okay.
Chain on Crenshaw. And then and trying to buy weed one time.
Man.
Yeah, I got your weed. And then you give the $20 and they dip.
Oh man.
And we was chasing dude. Me and my boy Norwood and our boy at the time, Titus.
Oh wow. I was in Mississippi one time and had walked into the bathroom and I was like, man, I'm out here with all these squares, man. I'm trying to, get me a little something. And homeboy's like, yeah, give it that. He said, but you gotta, they strict about it out here. So you're not gonna be able to, do nothing with it. Don't smoke it till you get home or just rah. And I was like, man, right. I'm about to roll this up, man. I'm about to, smoke something on my way back in the rental car to the place. Tobacco with some oregano or so. I was just like, oh man.
You're like, here we go.
But the funny thing, I kind of took responsibility because I was talking about how they were squares in country, you know what I'm saying? And they
Look, my family's from Arkansas. And I will talk again, like as a little kid, I didn't always live in Los Angeles. And my grandfather had a nightclub. And I grew up across the street from it.
Saw a lot of life.
Yeah, man, as a little kid, they would be gambling. He'd be up gambling for a few days. I wouldn't say it got all menace to society, but it got close.
Yeah.
We had fights and shootouts, and it was wild. So I grew up across the street from the bucket of blood, pretty much.
Has faith played a role in your decision making?
That is definitely, I would say, not to be on some super LA shit. I'm a spiritual person, definitely.
Okay.
But I, as I've been able to live life, I would say the parts of any sort of theological ideology, where it justifies any type of brutality toward people based on their race or sexual orientation, or I think those are like concepts that were created by people adding stuff into the Bible.
Some dudes in the room.
Yeah, some dudes in the room just rewriting the Bible to.
Nah, man, it was a writer's table, man. They was doing the greatest screenplay ever.
absolutely. You know what I'm saying?
They just
But
didn't
I
have
didn't
Starbucks.
know. I mean, it is my problem with it is like whatever your you could be a Buddhist, you could be a deist, you could be agnostic, what have you. But I think when you start to try to, which is why I was going off a lot last year, when you start to try to subjugate people based on the color of their skin or their sexual orientation or how God made them, we got some. With me, we got some major issues.
Well, that as a dark complected black man, it's kind of like when I'm around people and I hear them make a joke about another race or say something like that.
Yeah, when do I get to spin the bottle part, right?
Yeah, it hits me hard because the first thing, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but the first thing that pops in my mind is if you would say this about whatever race you're talking about.
What you saying about my black ass when I walk out the door? Yeah. Or as I like to say, you know what? I was born at night, not last night.
Yeah.
For real.
So, what's your favorite documentary?
Wow, that's a tough one. I might have to go with the Muscle Shoals one, just because it made me cry.
Never heard.
It's about Muscle Shoals, the recording studio, and it's in Muscle Shoals. It's in Alabama.
No, I'll look it up. It's
They recorded. Ain't No Way, Aretha Franklin, like all that Do Right Woman, all that stuff.
Okay.
Like when you watch the movies about her that have come out in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They getting in the argument. That was down in Muscle Shoals. They recorded David Bowie Fame there.
Oh wow.
The Stones recorded Wild Horses. What's his name? Clarence. Patches. I'm depending on your son.
Yeah.
They recorded that. And, Percy Sledge. When a man.
Yeah.
All that stuff got recorded there. Allman Brothers.
But see, you're a songwriter. So like that's gonna take you a different kind of way than most people. You know what I'm saying? You're looking at
man. I cried like a baby watching that documentary. It was heavy. Because it's like that, you know what it is, man? Because we go back to these things and we like have these assumptions about people. Oh, I grew up here and I'm like, I'm soul, I'm a brother. Blah, blah. And the thing that's heavy about the documentary is that cat grew up in the South, poor, white cat.
Yeah.
And ended up bringing all these people, all these different types of people from these backgrounds, and some of them would have never had a shot.
You know what?
Like, what's that story about Aaron Neville? How somebody heard him singing on the dock, and he's like, "Could you sing this song for me?" And the song was "Tell It Like It Is."
Huh.
You know what I mean? It's like that's some universe stuff happening.
Yeah.
Right there. So that's the kind of stuff that moves me, and it's like because I want to write like that.
Nah, that's dope. So, who would play you in a biopic? Who would you want to play you in a biopic?
Jeffrey Wright.
Man.
Easy peasy. Jeffrey Wright.
Man. You know what? I'm in love with his acting, but I'll say the role that he played that really touched me, Boardwalk Empire, man.
You know
Shame
what?
On you.
It is
Shame
so crazy. Because me too.
Okay.
He was so ill in that. He was just like, wow, are you kidding me?
He was the gangster that wasn't a gangster. Like he didn't look like a gangster.
Oh no. He was
round. He was very round.
It was like, yeah, he was ill in that. And the other weird thing is like after I left the band and moved to New York, that's the summer that Basquiat came out.
Damn.
And then I realized, like, I got all these friends that were hanging out with him, and they were like, "You met him back then?" I'm like, "I do not remember any of it." They were like, "No, you had to met him because he was hanging out with Rick, and we did the Beastie Boys tour, and blah 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 blah. He was around all that, blah blah blah. You know, he was going to Power Tools when it was downtown, and that's kind of how y'all happened."
Man,
that whole Matt and you know.
Dyke, yep, Matt Dyke, man, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, for real. Like, that whole scene got birthed from that club, and he was there hanging out. I'm like, really?
So tell me this: you've been through a couple passports. You done moved around this the turf a little bit. What's been your most legendary moment?
Playing music.
Nah, just, you know, the through the path that music has brought you. Like, it could be being in the presence of, like, I'll tell you one of mine.
Go for it.
So rest in peace, Fudge. My homies Fudge and Lucky, because I'm smooth like butter. Fudge used to manage Fife, but I met Fudge because he was working with George Clinton, and then Fudge was like, "Yo, man, you know, I want you to come down to Raphael Sadiq's studio, and I want you to, you know, meet my business partner," and blah, 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 blah. And then, and dude, I'm gonna tell you something crazy. So he's like, okay. So his business partner was Barbarella. But I never, like, when I heard the name Barbarella, when he introduced me and I met her,
right.
something said, that's George Clinton's daughter.
Right.
But not because of how she looked or anything, but just the name Barbarella to me, like, I had never heard that, and it ended up being that. So anyway, I was at the, dang, what was it called? It was called Little, I think it was called Little Temple. I want to say Little, or it might have been Zanzibar, but it was off of Santa Monica near it was off of Santa Monica, near Santa Monica, but Joy was performing, and I walked outside, and George Clinton walked up, and he was like, "Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? I just had an eighth of shrooms, man. I'm going right now." And I was like, "Damn, I'm right here talking to George Clinton, and he's shrooming." And Aunt Fiddler was there that night. You know what I'm saying? And I was like,
that's you know, that's my best friend right there, man, in the world.
So what was one of your most legendary moments? I mean, it ain't got to be about somebody being faded or nothing like that, but I mean.
Oh, no. I mean, honestly, okay. We are playing in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just super crazy because it wasn't just a night of, like, meeting one person. It was just an epic night of meeting people.
Okay.
Because of who was on the festival. Now, they are not here now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I got faded. I was faded. So it was me. We played in, it was like, I want to say it was like Lausanne, Switzerland. We played this festival. And on the festival was James Brown, The Pretenders, Lou Reed, PJ Harvey, Still Pulse. It just went like kablah, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like the Pixies. And I think like Morrissey was on it. So it was like one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had this thing because one time we wrote a show in Buffalo, New York, and we played with Chuck Berry. And it was one of those things where it's like, if I dude, Chuck Berry. Like, yeah, you just like, that's all you have, Chuck Berry. Like, you know, Mystical Fog comes out and shit. And, and he was horrible, bro. Like he played the show. The guitar was all out of tune. And like the band was whack. I was like, wow. You just felt like you got abused by Chuck. I'm like, why am I getting abused by Chuck Berry? It was just terrible. So I was like, I don't ever want to meet my heroes again at this point.
Yeah,
like, I'm cool because it fucked me up. So fast forward years later, we're in Switzerland playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, do I go see James Brown? I'm like, but what if he's whack? And then the other voice in my head is like the angel, and you know what I mean? And the angel's like, James Brown can't be whack. It's impossible. That was like, yo, man, you know that Chuck Berry thing was wild, right? So I'm like, going back and forth. And so I was like, fuck it. So I'm walking to go see like PJ Harvey. I'm like, I'm going back and forth, and I go, boom. And they start introducing, and it's like corny. Like it's corny. They start off and this lady singing like, people, all the luckiest people in the world. And it's like this. I'm like, wait a minute, hold it. Just stop. It's like, no, come on, take it. I'm like, breathe. Just breathe through it. It's gonna be fine. Just breathe. And all of a sudden, that dude comes out. And he's like, ladies and gentlemen, the hardest working man in show business, Mr. Please, Mr. Dynamite. Then he goes, James Brown, like that, you know. And all of a sudden, go to have fun, get that. And I'm walking. I start running to the stage. Running. And he and me and what's a singer from Still Pulse, Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics were all on the side of the stage, just like watching the Magistry go down. He just is killing it. He got me 60 blah blah at this time. You know what I'm saying? He's spinning, he's doing the split, he's hitting, he's singing his like how is he? You were singing like, how's he preserved his voice like this after all this time to still sound that dope? And he's 60 something, and he's crushing it. And we're so like walking on air. It's like me and Kendall had just got this Tom Anderson guitar. It's like $4,000, custom made. He's like, I'm getting James Brown beside my guitar. And we go down, and Kendall's super like new, like, you don't call him James. Hey, James. No. Mr. Brown, would you sign my guitar? And it was a marble, I'll never forget, it was a gold and black marble guitar. Mm-hmm. And James Brown is trying to get the ink out and sign it. He's trying to get the ink out and sign it. He's trying to, then he finally goes, and all the fucking ink goes all over Kendall's guitar. And everybody's like, and everybody's just like trying to not laugh and just like whatever. And James Brown goes, I'm sorry, Kendall, I apologize. And it's just like, he's like, it don't even matter. James Brown just apologized for backing up my guitar. And it didn't even matter. The signature at that point was just, you know what I mean? It was moot. Yeah. That was one of them ones.
Nah, he
was just in like, it don't get no better than that.
Nah, I get it. So during the whole little COVID situation, one of the little escapes that I found was and I can't say that I really saw a good one, man. I even with Rakim, no, I wanted it to be Rakim. Even with KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane, I never really saw verses that was, it just seemed like they were holding back or something like that. Like they really you didn't get that one. And part of it was just technology, trying to figure out how to do it without the delay. So if you could have your dream verses, dead or alive, who would it be?
In their prime?
Yep. Two musicians in their prime.
I mean, it's for me, it's only like, I'm gonna keep it 100, and it's not just because you know, like a few weeks ago, we did a Bowie tribute.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Seal was kind enough to grace the stage with us for a couple of songs. It was awesome. But everybody in my band knows, like, it's probably just Hendrix and David Bowie. Head to head.
Dang.
Yeah. That would be ill, right?
But it would have to, I think, man, because I'm saying, okay, if they came with their bands, but let's say even if you dropped the bands, if it was just, you know, if it was just Jimmy and Bowie, it would still be.
It would be sick.
Yeah.
He would go, go, get. And Boy would come back, ground control to Major Tom. And it would just be ill.
You know, the closest musician that I'll say that I've seen in the last 10 years, that's what I'll say, that gives me kind of that feeling that Jimmy has, but he's totally different. Mono Neon.
Really?
I'm just from a playing perspective, not singing. You know, that he sings too, but I'm just saying from a playing perspective, he's very, you know, and he plays left-handed. You know what I'm saying? He's you got to check him out. You got to check him out.
I know. I've listened to Mono Neon. And he's dope. Like, I mean, for me, it's just Hendrix is just like.
I'm saying in the last 10 years. I'm saying in this.
I mean, all of them are dope, though, man. Him, Thundercat, like Isaiah Sharkey, Clasper, like, you know, Chris Day.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all of them are just like, it's weird, man, because I vacillate between like listening, like you listen to a lot of dudes and you like kind of like, yeah, they're dope, and you gotta take it for granted. But I go back and listen to us playing stuff, and I'm like, that was just some hot molten garbage. Like, so, like, I even, yeah, I
think you're hard on yourself, man.
I definitely am. When it comes to music, definitely, I'm a weirdo. It drives everybody crazy. So I accept it.
So last question of the podcast, man. Shit, we could have done this for a couple more hours, man. I skipped over a bunch of stuff, but where do you see social interaction going in the next 2 years?
Man, I hope to a better place.
Mm-hmm.
I just think we all like are so, you know, oddly disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all the great things about technology, and then there's like all the worst things. You know what I mean? I just hope we sort of, you know, snap out of the judgment. You know, like the human experience is like, you know, this shit is like, it's sticky. You know, we're human beings. We do some, you know, incapable of extraordinary great.
But
and then extreme, like, you know, Khmer Rouge, like level, you know what I mean? World War II, this shit that's going on right now is just insane. It's like the first thing that happened when not to just go off on the Ukraine thing, like the first thing I thought of was The Master of Margarita, that book, like Bulgakov, and it takes place in Kiev, and it's the devil. You know what I mean? If you've never read the book, it's deep. It's basically so I heard, and I don't know if it's like, you know, urban myth, but it's supposed to be, that book is supposed to be the inspiration for Sympathy for the Devil, Rolling Stones.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, you know, my greatest thing is like that we just, you know, just start seeing each other as human.
You know,
valuable.
When I'll say this and then we'll wrap, but when I was talking to my buddy who got monkey hustled, they used another one of our buddies who had got hustled too. So it was kind of like he saw the other buddy do it. So he was thinking, all right, cool. And while they were in the other buddy, the one who they used to get my boy, he's probably like maybe 30 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not the, you know, he's a younger dude. And he said something that was just, it really stuck with me. And he was like, you know, I pretty much text and send people DMs. It's kind of weird to talk to some people sometimes, because he was talking about making songs or whatever. And I was kind of like, damn, that was kind of pitiful to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, you know, communicate, like verbal communicate. If you can't see a person, I get it. But like, he even seemed disconnected from like verbal communication. Like he was just,
yeah,
like that's how they, you know, how they do it. Where like, you know, I look back to high school, junior high school, the mall experience. You had to talk to girls. Like you had to talk. Like it wasn't like
interact.
Yeah, if you didn't talk, you didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, it wasn't going down.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, and let me get even deeper. You had to be able to talk, and you sure had to be able to dance. And I think, and as whatever you laugh, I mean, I think I'm corny or whatever, but there's a real disconnect. Like, okay, bottle service is like, okay, you flossing, I get it, whatever.
The guys ain't dancing with the girls. That's
nobody dancing. Well, I mean, whatever you want to do, but nobody is having any exchange of energy. Yeah. It's all just like, I hate you. And it's like, yeah, okay, you can hide behind that little thing in your hand if you want to, but you'll just be some weird. It's like kind of like that Aerosmith video for Sweet Emotion, where at the end of it, like the kid calls up, it's like the phone sex thing, but it's actually like a 60-year-old grandma in like Nebraska. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is, kind of. You know, we don't interact. We assume that the person behind this thing is like whoever, and we don't know who it is, what they stand for. They just hiding, making people feel like shit about whatever their beliefs are. And in no part of it is there any sort of like exchange of information or ideas.
Nah, it is, but none of it is fact checked. And it's just it's just a whole bunch of stuff. So with that being said, man, you got anything you want to shout out? Any shows coming up? Any projects you got going? You want to give your social media?
We're you know, Fishbone is in the middle of like brewing up a record, and I've got I'm in the middle of a project that's going to take me to Jamaica next month to work with the legendary King Jammy and my boy Johnny Wonder and Roger Rivas from the Agrolites and Chris Brennan from Riot, and my boy Blake Coley, who I've been playing music with now for like 10 years. We played together in this band called the Lions. And just that whole crew of people from like Dub Club, that whole...
You were in the Lions?
Yeah, for a second, dog.
For a second.
They asked me, yeah, you know.
I know Dan, you know, Dan makes it round.
Yeah, I was doing my little, you know, come up and chirp on a couple of songs. Yeah, and then, but it born, like, you know, it's like, it was one of those things that got me back to playing music with people, because at a certain point, I was like, I'm cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it can be hard, man. Music can break your heart, you know?
Yeah, that's a fact.
But you gotta, you know, if you're an artist, at some point you gotta get back in the game. But, you know, I mean, you know my story. I've had some, lost some friends along the way. There was some heavy emotional and some life stuff that happened. And it happens to us all.
No, you know? I get it. Well, no, man. I thank you for this time, man. This was a good one, man. I
have to do this again, bro.
No, we will, because we didn't even get where I was trying to, like, we got a lot, but it was like, man, I skipped over a whole lot. So, I appreciate you, man. Your time, the history. That's the thing. Like, it's kind of like you from a perspective as like an older brother handing down the tale. Like you're telling me the rituals and what went on, you know, what went on before there was freeways type of thing. This is how we traveled. Like, this is how we did it. And these are the things that was going on. So anyway, man, I'm definitely going to reach out to you again, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.